You have been lied to. By your mother, by your lover, by your boss, and by your government. They all lied to you. It may have been in a different way and about different things than you would expect, but nevertheless, they lied to you. Can you learn how to spot lies by simply observing body language or nonverbal communication? No. Whoever tries to convince you otherwise is, well, lying to you. I know. There's a multi-billion-dollar industry out there selling anything from books and workshops to high-tech gadgets such as facial emotion recognition or thermal vision as a method of detecting deception. To make matters worse, there seem to be more misconception about body language and deception cues out there than ever before because all of these various interest groups that promote them. Let me just give you some examples. According to a study from 2006, almost 70% of the population in 75 different countries believe that eye gaze aversion is a sign of deception. So if I can't look you into your eyes, then I'm lying. But this assumption is completely false. Empirical evidence tells us that there is absolute no correlation with eye gaze aversion and lying. You can test how well you can identify correct cues of deception on my website. Just go to saltcubeanalytics.com, click on Deception in the menu bar, and scroll down till you find Take the Quiz. Equally strong held is the belief that 93% of our communication is non-verbal. This misconception goes back to Albert Mehrabian. The problem with that is that Mehrabian's research has been misquoted and misunderstood, to say the least, and he himself has spent years trying to rectify the situation. In my interview with her, Professor Elisabeth Stocko said that the main group that propagates this myth are presentation trainers, public speaking coaches, and communication consultants. So you can already see where I'm going with this. There are a lot of misconceptions in regards to body language and deception detection, but despite more than 60 years of research, the scientific evidence is clear and unambiguous. There are no universal deception cues. Pinocchio's nose does not exist, no matter what a million self-proclaimed experts try to sell you. But even scientists are not immune to money. One researcher sold an anti-terror program to the US government that focuses on facial expressions of suspects in airports. Not surprisingly, not a single terrorist has ever been caught with that method. But never mind. The same scientist then sold his script to Hollywood, and as a result we all enjoyed the fictional TV series Lie to Me. I have interviewed two of the best scientists in this field, Tim Levine and Steve McCornack, and I can only recommend to listen to these interviews because they give you insight you otherwise only would get if you would study their research papers. And because these guys, they're just fun to listen to. For those seriously interested in deception detection, I mean over and beyond the myth and misconceptions, I will come back to this topic in a minute, so please bear with me for the moment. Now that we have addressed the elephant in the room, let's get serious. I said elephant in the room because whenever I speak about behavior analysis, the first questions are always related to deception detection, which is understandable given the general interest in this topic. So while body language clearly is not suitable for deception detection, body language becomes very interesting when viewed through the lens of evolutionary psychology. For example, we can spot fear in someone as far away as 100 meters and we don't even have to see the face of the person. In evolutionary terms, that makes sense, because what was dangerous for you in the savannah could very likely have been dangerous for me. My survival would have depended on reading your cues correctly. Think about it. Our modern skulls still house ancient minds that were designed and shaped to deal with challenges from ancestral times. This means that we react to contemporary problems in exactly the same way as our ancestors did when a predator suddenly jumped out of the bush. Put differently, a billionaire shooting himself into the stratosphere on top of a phallic symbol could be accurately described as just a naked ape in a spacesuit that tries to promote his aging genes via status indicators and by demonstrating resources via conspicuous consumption. That's exactly how it was done thousands of years ago. Promoting genes, that is. If you need confirmation that we truly are naked apes, either listen to my interview with the primatologist Frans de Waal or read Desmond Morris' book the naked ape. So we do still have these ancient mental programs in our brain. Some, like the Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, call them shortcuts, others call them stereotypes or cognitive biases. Although people like to think that they are rational and logical beings, in fact, we are constantly under the influence of cognitive biases. These mental programs help us to make very quick, sometimes life-saving decisions, but they are not very accurate. What they do, however, is to distort our thinking. They influence our beliefs and emotions, and as a result sway our decisions or judgments one way or another. Did you know that more than 90% of the decisions that you make are based on emotions? We make emotional decisions and then use our rational mind to justify them. And these cognitive biases are as strong today as they were thousands of years ago. That's the reason, or one of the reasons, why we're also easily manipulated. The insights about cognitive biases come from cognitive science, social psychology, behavioral economics, and evolutionary psychology. You may or may not be fully aware of evolutionary psychology, but I guarantee you corporations and public opinion shapers are. Watch, for example, my interview with Gesa Lischka. She is the CEO of a successful German neuromarketing PR agency that specialized on evolutionary psychology to guide consumer behavior.
Emotions are really vital for us. If we haven't any emotions, we're not going to decide anything. So if we want people to decide for our brand or against our brand or for a message against something, we need to add emotions. We're actually not able to make a mere rational decision. It's not possible. There are always emotions involved.
Another treasure trove is a book called Consumer Instinct, written by Professor Rath-Saad. If we take this a step further, the same techniques can be used to manipulate public opinion, and it doesn't matter if for an election or to prepare us for the next war. But I'm digressing here. So what is behavior analysis and how can it help you to make a difference in your own life? The main difference between behavior analysis and, say, non-verbal communication is that while body language experts limit themselves to only one communication channel, the body language, the behavior analyst analyzes the full spectrum of human interaction on both the physical and psychological level and takes the context and the environment in which the behavior takes place into account. And the cognitive biases that I already mentioned, if you understand them, you understand human behavior, your own and that of others. What's more, with cognitive biases, behaviors can not only be predicted, but obviously also be manipulated. Instead of discussing some of the cognitive biases here, as tempting as it might be, I have something better for you, especially if you think you don't have any. Go to the website of the Harvard University and do some of the Implicit Association Tests that are available there. You can find the link below in the description. Implicit association tests are interesting because they allow us to test cognitive biases with astonishing accuracy and to circumvent any interference of conscious preferences or beliefs. But mind you, the results may not be what you expect and not everybody is always ready to accept them. Before we now come back to deception detection, let me interject a little disclaimer. My own academic research shows that contrary to popular belief, people don't like to lie, at least not outright. That's true for John Doe on the street, but even more so for managers and negotiators in high-stakes negotiations. I know that because I was lucky enough to get 30 senior executives of one of the world's largest corporations to participate in my research. It turns out that the most common form of deception are acts of omissions, that means simply skipping over relevant information. This was not a new discovery, but what I found was that there are clearly defined indicators that can point towards acts of omissions. You only have to know what to look for. This is why I'm especially interested in verbal communication, linguistics, and I'm not alone. There's a growing consensus among scientists that linguistics holds the greatest potential when it comes to deception detection. Let me explain. People often think that they have full control of what they are saying, but that's an illusion. People cannot fully control their language because part of it is subconscious and because of the incredible processing speed of the brain. to speak, that is, to translate a picture in your mind into a sentence, involves adherence to the correct rules of grammar. It involves syntax, that is, how you structure your sentence. It involves instant and precise word-for-word choice from a vocabulary of probably more than 100,000 words. And it involves the use of many little function words that glue it all together. These function words are processed in a different part of the brain and largely evade conscious awareness. This is what makes them especially interesting for deception detection. The processing speed required by the brain to do all that simultaneously is too fast for anyone to fully control the language. People may believe that they can control the language, but in reality they cannot. The only way to control language is simply not to talk, but then sometimes silence speaks louder than words. If you want to test how elusive these function words really are, go to saltcubeanalytics.com, click on the words in the menu bar and scroll down till you find Join us for a little experiment. From an interview perspective, I have addressed this topic from the academic and the practitioner's point of view. In those interviews, Mark McLitch, a former FBI special agent, talks about his statement analysis, and Avinoam Sapir, an Israeli police lieutenant and polygrapher, explains his scientific content analysis, which he trains out to law enforcement around the globe. I already mentioned Professor Elisabeth Stockow if you're interested in the academic side of linguistics. Or you can watch the interview with Isabelle Picornell, a forensic linguist who prevented $1 million fraud by analyzing a couple of email exchanges. This brings me to my overall approach with my interviews. What you will find on my channel are interviews with academics, practitioners in the field, and commentators on global events. For me, that seems a logical combination because there's a gap between science and practitioners in the field, a gap that I try to bridge. And in the interviews with the commentators on global events, like Professor Jeffrey Sachs or Noam Chomsky, I try to apply behavior analysis, at least to some extent, to understand what's going on in the world today. If you stick around and choose to subscribe, there will be no Black Friday sales offers or snake oil coming your way. Instead, you will have access to information shared by recognized thought leaders and subject matter experts in the broader context of behavior analysis. If you apply this knowledge in private or business context, if you use it to analyze politicians or what is broadcast from the mainstream media, or if you use it at all is completely up to you. Keep in mind though, once you have opened Pandora's box, there is no way back. Good luck.